not all screen-based media is bad, but there's a lot that is wrong.
Raising Questions, an honest conversation about parenting in the digital age. I'm Mikey.
And I'm Dee, and we're co-founders of Mevi. We believe in less but better screen time.
And I'm Koen, and to make sure Mevi is grounded in expert knowledge, I go out and speak with those experts to ask them questions.
And who did you speak to this time, Koen?
I spoke with Edyta Cios. She is an assistant professor of neuropsychology at Tilburg University in the Netherlands, and she specialized in the effects of screens on young kids.
Nice. And what was the takeaway, Koen?
The main takeaway for me was that pacing really matters. So a lot of videos today have rapid scene changes and this constant stimulation, which can overwhelm the brains of small kids, so they can actually no longer process what they see. And this can have short-term effects on their behavior, like in the form of tantrums. And in some cases, it can even have long-term effects on their development.
Well, okay, speaking of pacing, let's keep it moving. Let's get straight to the interview.
Welcome, Edyta. Thank you for taking the time. I have the impression that most of the debate about screens focuses on teenagers. We're concerned, for example, about 14-year-olds on Instagram, but should we be just as concerned about 4-year-olds on tablets watching YouTube?
This very first years of life, starting from infancy up to 5-6 years of age, is a period where the child's brain develops quite rapidly. It forms new connections. In other words, you can call it like this, a wiring base for development of various skills like language, memory, attention. And those connections at a later stage, if they are stimulated sufficiently, can become stronger. If they are not stimulated sufficiently, they can be removed. And the strengthening of those connections can be, of course, influenced either positively or negatively by different factors. And here, screen-based media is one of those factors. If it's not used correctly, for the right time and with the right content, and can actually negatively influence the strengthening of those connections in young children's brains.
What does that look like if it gets negatively affected? What could be the consequences?
Yeah. So, well, if the main problem here is that if young children use screen-based media a lot, that replaces other activities. So, for example, they do not interact with their parents or peers that much. They do not read books with their parents as much or engage in other activities. So, for example, their language development could be slowed because learning from screens is not as efficient and as strong as learning through face-to-face interactions or reading books, talking with each other. So, so screen media use can actually hamper development of various skills.
So, but that means it's mostly what screen time takes away rather than direct negative effects of the screen time itself.
I would say both. So it's what it takes away, so the opportunities for other activities, but also how children interact with it, because not all screen-based media is bad, but there's a lot that is wrong. So, for example, if the content is not properly adapted to young minds, it can overload them. So it can overload their attention, it can overload their, speaking in technical terms, visual cortex, which is responsible for image processing. Children seem engaged, but they actually cannot understand what's happening on those screens because their brains do not have the right tools to really understand what's going on.
And if you say the brain gets overloaded, what does that mean? Does that have permanent effects, or is that a short-term effect that can lead to tantrums, or how does it play out in practice?
Yep. So this is, of course, the research is still ongoing. So there are still many things that are unknown in this area. However, what we've seen so far in the current research is pretty consistent. Long-term exposure to age-inappropriate content can lead to tantrums, problems with disengaging from media, also with some aggressive behaviors, especially if children were exposed to content that showed aggressive behaviors. Also, there's been some research that showed associations between very early inappropriate screen-based media use by young children and later on problems with attention or poorer language skills. So it's also those cognitive abilities that are influenced.
Let's talk a bit about age-inappropriate content. Can you give an example, what that looks like?
Yes. So of course that can differ between, let's say, videos aimed at 2-3-year-olds versus 5-6-year-olds. For example, for the 2-3-year-olds, video that it's very fast changing scenes. There's loud music. The characters are speaking fast. That is age-inappropriate content. That is too much.
What happens in the brain if you are exposed to too much age-inappropriate screen content?
Children cannot really pay attention to the elements, to the specific features in the video. Children cannot really focus on those features and cannot really learn. So cannot really remember what they watched. If you ask them afterwards, oh, so what did you like? What happened in that video? They cannot really say because their attention, even though it seems like they are really focused on the video, they are really not paying attention to the critical elements.
Sometimes you see kids that are so focused on a screen, often a screen with a lot of things happening, and there's a tantrum if they need to stop. It's almost like these kids are addicted in a way. Is that a good comparison?
Yeah, well, to some extent, yes. So because indeed they can show this addictive-like behavior. So it's hard for them to stop. If they have to stop, they start crying, throwing tantrums. They have hard time engaging in other activities because they constantly seek this overstimulating environment, which is, the screen-based media. They have problems with being bored. It's harder for them to find things that can actually bring them joy because they really want to fill that time with watching videos.
That makes me think about adults being, quote unquote, addicted to their social media feeds, because that's just really nice for a brain to just constantly have new input. Is that true?
We have this dopamine. So this is one of the neurotransmitters in our brain. If it's released, we feel happier, we feel stimulated. And that's why we engage with our phones, tablets, or screens quite frequently. We are becoming slowly addicted to those dopamine releases.
In 2023, you wrote an extensive review of scientific literature on the effects of screens on kids' brains. And in that review, you argue that media creators, the people who make kids' content, should work closely with child development experts like yourself. What could and should such collaboration look like in practice?
My first point would be start as early as possible. So such collaboration should not be limited to only final checks of the content by the experts and getting like this, let's say, ethical check, but it's really about collaborating already during the design phase. So what the developers can do is actively seek guidance. And the second point is putting focus on a child. So not thinking it from the adult perspective. What would be nice to have? Oh, we will add some colors and that will be fun. Now, really consider what a child needs.
Can you give an example of a content that is age appropriate?
I would say that for those kids that are 2, 3, 4-year-olds, you could start with something very simple. Like very simple shapes, simple colors, limited number of characters, so it's easier for those children to follow them. And then you gradually increase the presentations of features, maybe the number of characters, while still keeping in mind not to go overboard with it.
So it's safe to say that screen use has shifted from scheduled programming on a TV to online platforms like YouTube. And it's often viewed on tablets and phones now. Does that shift matter from a developmental perspective?
Yes, and tremendously, I would say. And if I could, I would gladly go back to the time when we had those scheduled TV programs, mainly because first they were scheduled. So kids knew that, okay, I can only watch within this time window. And it also had a clear ending. This is it. There's no other video coming after that. Also, it was much easier for parents to monitor how much time their kids spent in front of screens because it was scheduled. This was a half an hour, 1 hour program, and that's it. Right now, unfortunately, with platforms like YouTube, we have this constant scroll through videos. One video ends, immediately comes another one. And then for a child, it's really easy to switch to another video, which might not be appropriate. And additionally, the current way these platforms are developed is to maintain continuous engagement. They do not focus on a child or delivering the right content, but it is all about continuous engagement.
I wonder about the importance of options. What I see with my daughter, who's 5 now, she has already developed the idea that there's a limitless amount of options, that anything she wants is available. And she's already found out how you can scroll. So she will just search until she finds the video that exactly matches what she wishes at that moment. And I've been wondering if that's good. It doesn't feel good, the idea that everything is always available. But maybe I'm old-fashioned.
No, your gut feeling tells you the right thing. Indeed, having unlimited options is actually not good. First, because again, kids can easily switch to different programs, different videos, and they can get lost in this vast forest of various inappropriate videos. But also, it doesn't help their development of their self-control. They have problems with self-choosing what's right, what's wrong. So no, having limited choice is actually better for children.
Yeah, and for adults too, I think.
Yes, definitely.
I know you're a parent yourself. How do you translate your own scientific knowledge into the way you deal with screen time back home?
Yeah. Well, definitely knowing how the use of screen-based media can influence child's development helped me a lot with creating the guidelines at home. One of the first things I do is making sure that I monitor how much time my child spends in front of screens. So my son is 6, and one of the things I do is when he selects something new, I watch with him. So I also check whether what he selected, what he decided to watch, is appropriate for him. And if it's not, we talk. I think that's an important element, and something I can highly recommend to parents is talk to your children, explain why you are not letting them watch that video, what is happening, and then in very simple language. And while they may still be disappointed, they know why my mom is or my dad is deciding that.
It made me think of an example that happened just last week where my daughter found something that she really wanted to watch, and it was mermaids and rainbows and very loud and fast, and I couldn't stand it, and I suggested to watch something else, and she was really confused why I didn't like what she was watching, and I couldn't explain. So there's also that, children have different tastes.
Yeah. So indeed, if we only say, "Oh, Mama, Papa doesn't like it," then of course children be like, "But I like it," and people like different things. You can still explain it to a child about their brain development. You need to do it in a very simple way, but still, like, explain it. Like, your brain is still growing, and then this video is not very good for that. It's the same like with sweets, and should I have another candy or should I have a banana? It's what is better. It's also explaining to your child why one is better than the other.
What advice would you give parents?
I wouldn't demonize screens. I would say use them mindfully. So, of course, one day of a bit of extra screen time will not cause a lot of harm, but doing that for an extended period of time may. So it's about using it mindfully, keeping the balance. So if today my child spent extra time in front of screens, tomorrow we will make sure that we spend extra time reading books, spending time outdoors. Or if my child is going to spend more time in front of screens, that at least we select the right content. Also, yes, keep in mind that you are the role model here. So if there are rules, if you could create rules at home about screen time, make sure you respect them. And maybe a very, very specific example, what parents can do is what I read recently, what someone came up with at home, is that when they come back home in the evening, they put their phones or other devices in a basket, on a side table, and it stays there for the whole evening. So really, everyone can spend time together, engage in conversations, have this face-to-face interactions. So, well, if parents want to maybe implement some changes, this would be one way to go.
Did you implement it?
Not yet, but I'm strongly thinking about it. Like, we started now with no phones at the table, and then I intend to indeed implement the basket rule as a next step.
I will also start looking for a basket and start talking to the rest of the family about this new rule. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. It was really enjoyable and a pleasure to talk to you about the topic.
Thanks, Koen. That was super interesting. And Edyta is actually part of the Mivi family. She's helping us validate the science behind Mivi.
And if you want to learn more about Mivi, you can head to our website, mivi.com, and there you can be part of the Mivi family.
And I will be back here to speak with more experts. But for now, thank you for your attention and have a nice day.